She was alone in the Australian outback, zip-tied, barefoot, and hiding under a bush. A man with a gun and a flashlight was searching for her. Her boyfriend had just vanished. She thought she was going to die. This wasn't fiction, it was real, and within days the world would know the name Peter Falconio. 2 years later, police arrested Bradley John Murdoch, a man with a violent past and a secret. He was convicted of Falconio's murder, but to this day, the body has never been found. Now, more than 2 decades later, Murdoch is reportedly dying. And the question remains, will he finally confess? This is the full story of the Peter Falconio case, one of Australia's most haunting and controversial true crime mysteries. Peter Falconio and Joanne Lees were a young couple from the UK. Both were in their late 20s. They had been dating for several years and were adventurous, fun-loving travelers. In late 2000, they embarked on a year-long trip around the world. Australia was one of their final destinations. They arrived in Australia in early 2001, planning to drive from Sydney up through the Northern Territory and eventually to Western Australia. They purchased a 1970s orange VW Combi van to explore the outback and were midway through their journey in July 2001. On the evening of July 14th, they were driving north along the Stewart Highway near the tiny town of Barrow Creek, a remote stretch of road with little to no lighting, mobile reception, or services. At around 8 p.m., a man driving a four-wheel drive vehicle pulled up alongside their van and signaled them to stop. He claimed that sparks were coming from their exhaust and offered to help. Peter stepped out of the van with him while Joanne stayed in the passenger seat. Moments later, Joanne heard what sounded like a gunshot. The man then approached her, holding a silver revolver. He bound her hands with zip ties, forced her into the back of his vehicle, and attempted to cover her face with a sack. She managed to fight him off, escape from the vehicle, and flee into the darkness. Joanne ran through the scrubland, hiding for several hours behind bushes and shrubs as the attacker searched for her with a flashlight. Eventually, after several terrifying hours, she made her way to the highway and flagged down a passing truck. But as for Peter, he was never seen again. The story triggered a nationwide search and media frenzy. Australian authorities launched a massive manhunt for the unknown assailant and a search for Peter's body. Hundreds of police, trackers, and volunteers scoured the desert. But nothing was found. No body, no murder weapon, no motive. For months, the case went cold. Joanne was flown back to the UK and later returned to Australia to help with the investigation. She worked with police to create an e-fit of the suspect and recalled distinct details: a mustache, long hair, a dog in the car, and a revolver. She also remembered a particular style of four-wheel drive. The breakthrough came 2 years later, in 2003. A man named Bradley John Murdoch, a drug runner with a violent history, was arrested in Western Australia for an unrelated sexual assault charge.
Bradley Murdoch, a self-confessed drug runner, has been convicted of murdering the British backpacker Peter Falconio.
A Darwin judge today jailed Murdoch until 2031.
Police took his DNA, and it matched the DNA found on the zip ties used to bind Joanne Lees. Bradley John Murdoch was born on 19th of February 1958 in Geraldton, Western Australia. He came from a working-class family and dropped out of school early. As a teenager and young adult, he developed a deep distrust of authority, became involved in outlaw motorcycle clubs, and began drifting into criminal circles. He was known as a loner, often paranoid and aggressive, with a fascination for firearms. Over the years, he built a criminal record that included violent assaults and firearm offenses. In 1980, he was convicted of dangerous driving causing death. In 1995, he was involved in a firearm incident near Fitzroy Crossing. In 2001, he was arrested in Broome after pulling a gun during a road rage incident. In 2003, he was charged with the rape of a 12-year-old girl, though that case was later dropped. Murdoch spent much of his adult life traveling across the remote highways of Australia, often transporting drugs between states. He owned a white four-wheel drive Toyota Land Cruiser, had a dog with him, and matched the description Joanne Lees had provided. By 2003, police had enough evidence to charge him with Peter Falconio's murder and the assault of Joanne Lees. The trial began in October 2005 in Darwin and lasted for almost 3 months. It was one of the most watched and scrutinized court cases in Australian history. Joanne Lees took the stand and gave harrowing testimony of the attack, the abduction, and her escape. Murdoch's defense team tried to paint her as unreliable, raising questions about her demeanor, her memory, and even suggesting a possible alternative theory involving a third party. Murdoch refused to testify in his own defense. He showed little emotion throughout the proceedings and continued to deny involvement, claiming he had never met Joanne Lees, but the prosecution presented damning evidence. Murdoch's DNA was found on Joanne's shirt and the zip ties. Joanne accurately described Murdoch's vehicle and dog. CCTV footage from a gas station placed Murdoch near Barrow Creek the same night. Despite the body never being found, the jury found Murdoch guilty of murdering Peter Falconio, depriving Joanne Lees of her liberty, and assaulting her. Murdoch was sentenced to life in prison with a non-parole period of 28 years. Following his conviction, Murdoch launched several appeals. His legal team argued that the DNA evidence was contaminated and that the identification by Joanne Lees was unreliable. In December 2006, Murdoch appealed to the Northern Territory Court of Criminal Appeal. The appeal was dismissed in January 2007. He then applied for special leave to appeal to the High Court of Australia, but this too was refused in June 2007. Murdoch launched another appeal in 2013, but withdrew it in early 2014. He has never confessed and continues to maintain his innocence, claiming he was framed and that someone else committed the crime. Despite mounting public and legal pressure, he has never cooperated with investigators in locating Peter Falconio's body. Despite Murdoch's conviction, the Peter Falconio case has continued to spark debate, skepticism, and conspiracy theories for over 2 decades. Many have questioned why Peter's body was never recovered. Murdoch has never confessed or revealed what he did with the remains, leaving an agonizing void for Falconio's family. Joanne Lees, the only witness and survivor, faced intense media scrutiny in the aftermath of the attack. Her behavior, calm under pressure and at times emotionally restrained, led some to question her story. In a 2002 televised interview with Martin Bashir on ITV's Tonight Show, her reluctance to speak publicly and emotionally charged responses added fuel to the controversy. It was inconsistencies in her account that conspiracy theorists seized on. For instance, she told police that her hands were bound behind her back with cable ties, yet the truckers who found her claimed her hands were in front of her. When asked how this was possible, she explained she had wriggled them forward while hiding in the bushes. A police source at the time said this would have required the flexibility of a contortionist. Other questions followed. Only Joanne's footprints were found at the scene. No trace of Peter's or the attackers. There was blood on the road, but none on the back of the combi van. No murder weapon was ever recovered. And at the time of the crime, Joanne declined to make a public appeal, further raising suspicions. One moment that drew particular criticism came when she was asked if she had killed Peter. She responded, "It's totally untrue." When pressed again, she simply said, "No." These anomalies gave rise to a wave of conspiracy theories. Some believed Murdoch had been framed. Others speculated that Peter had faked his death. A few suggested a third party may have been involved, or that Lees' escape was implausibly lucky. The conspiracy speculation only intensified when it was revealed during police interviews that Joanne had been having an affair with a man named Nick Riley prior to the attack. While she was open about it with police and later testified to it in court, tabloids and online forums used it to question her sincerity and emotional reaction to Peter's disappearance.
There's indications that your relationship with Peter might have been sour. You're similar. Can you tell us about that?
I had an affair with someone called Nick, and it lasted a month. Pete didn't know about it.
Would you describe a romantic relationship, you each have?
We just said if, we felt anything after in 6 months or whatever when we got back from England, then we'd review it.
Critics claimed she lacked visible grief, a point often made unfairly against female victims. But investigators never saw this as relevant to the crime, and it played no part in the physical evidence that led to Murdoch's conviction. Still, despite the doubts and speculation, forensic evidence ultimately told a clearer story. DNA matching Murdoch's was found on Joanne's shirt and on the cable ties used to restrain her. His vehicle matched her description. His location placed him near Barrow Creek that night, and investigators have stood firmly by Joanne's account. Even with no body, no weapon, and enduring questions, the evidence against Bradley Murdoch, especially the DNA, has withstood all appeals, media scrutiny, and years of public doubt. In June 2020, Channel 4 in the UK aired a 4-part documentary series titled Murder in the Outback: The Falconio and Lees Mystery. The series re-examined the case in forensic detail. The documentary raised questions about aspects of the investigation and trial, including the strength and clarity of the DNA evidence presented to the jury, the lack of blood evidence in or around the combi van, the fact that search dogs failed to pick up Joanne's scent in the location where she claimed to have hidden, claims from a truck driver witness who said he saw 3 men and a red car that night, one of whom appeared limp, suggesting Falconio might have still been alive. Behavioral analysts using scientific content analysis techniques highlighted perceived inconsistencies in Joanne Lees' interviews. While the documentary did not overturn any findings, it sparked renewed debate and skepticism, particularly in the UK, about whether justice had truly been served. In 2025, media outlets reported that Murdoch is terminally ill and has been moved into palliative care. This revelation prompted fresh calls from the Falconio family and the public for him to finally reveal the location of Peter's body. To date, no confession has been made public, but Murdoch is believed to be nearing the end of his life. A $500,000 reward remains in place for any information leading to the recovery of Falconio's remains. Many believe the truth, if it is ever to come, must be revealed soon. The Peter Falconio case is one of Australia's most tragic and mystifying crimes. A young man vanishes in the desert, his girlfriend survives an attack, and the killer is jailed. But the body remains lost, and key questions remain unanswered. Joanne Lees went on to write a memoir, earned a degree in sociology, and now lives a quiet life away from the spotlight. But the case still follows her, and Peter's family still waits. Now, with Bradley John Murdoch's life coming to an end, the world waits to see whether he'll finally reveal what happened on that night in 2001. Will the truth finally come out, or will he take it to the grave? In the Outback, silence can last forever, and justice might depend on a dying man's final words. Let us know in the comments, do you think Bradley Murdoch will ever confess? And will Peter Falconio's family ever find closure? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more true crime stories.